Usually when I'm talking, I'll pull it down and I'll pull it down just a
And then, like I said, when I
Hi,
say
hi.
go, we're just gonna hit the button D.
She's like, what
She's
just
just-
came out of your mouth?
She's just happy to see other people.
You can come up here if you want. You want to come up here?
And just once we go live, I'll wave. I'll say we're gonna go live, but just wait a second, because then it notifies people that we're going
Got it.
live.
You have like a pause. Will you give me the thumbs up when we're ready?
Yeah.
Okay. That always helps.
Yes, please.
See, I
What
don't
the
feel like
heck?
dust balls gonna
Oh.
be in the picture.
I love having dust ball coming in and out. Hi, baby. Hi, baby. Are you trying to come out? Are you here?
I just imagine the
you get
cat's
that-
face
you get
coming
that
up to one of the
camera.
cameras. You know what I mean?
You get that camera, I'll get this camera. How about that? All right, so hit the button D.
Checking connection.
Do you have all three going?
Good morning. Welcome to Wellness Wednesday. I'm Jen Rico with Caridad Gardens. We're always trying to humanize homelessness, and I'm out remote today with one of our gardeners and with one of our remote gardeners. First of all, I want to introduce Heather. Heather's our new head gardener at Caridad. So please, everybody, welcome Heather. You'll start seeing her in some of our social media posts. More than likely, you'll start seeing her more on our Wellness Wednesdays. Heather, can you introduce yourself and kind of tell us how you got to Vegas?
Sure. I'm Heather. I actually moved here when I was in junior high, and I met the man who's now my husband, and we actually met at a church dance, and we moved apart, and I came back because I was dating him long distance, and it was just too difficult.
hard.
So we came back. I came back to Vegas, and I'm here.
Nice. So we're really glad you're here. I'm really glad you're here. She's been such a great addition to Caridad Gardens. We really have been, if you've been watching any of our social media posts, we're starting to get ready to expand. So the idea that we have a head gardener that can help us and expand has been really helpful for all of the Caridad workers, because we've been trying to get these things up and running, and so we want to make sure that we're efficient with that. So what is your background with gardening? Did you actually go to school for it? Was it something you fell in love with as a child? Like, how did you get into gardening?
I actually fell in love with gardening because growing up we had a bunch of fruit trees, and I was the one who always watered them and always picked them before they were entirely ripe because I thought that they were ripe.
Yeah.
So so I've always loved plants, but I actually took the Master Gardener program that's offered here in Las Vegas at the University of Nevada at the Cooperative Extension, and been gardening ever since.
So it's a master's level program. Did you go to school before that for anything, or was
It's a Master Gardener program, but it's not a master's level.
Got it.
It's not a college degree.
got it?
But it's an awesome program. There's a lot of cool things that you get to learn, and lots of volunteering, lots of
Nice.
community service, and so it's a really great program.
No, I'm interested because I am not a gardener. I was an athlete, so I'm coming into this field very green, so to speak. St. Patrick's Day.
Good.
What are some of the classes that you took, and what were the things that really stood out to you that were your favorites maybe?
They taught a little bit of botany, a little bit of pretty much everything.
Yeah.
Most there's the aspect that you learn in class, but then there's the other aspect where you're learning hands-on, and that's actually a lot of fun
Right.
as well. And you can take a tour of the botanical gardens. They're on Paradise and by the 215, and it's a beautiful garden. There's also a demonstration orchard that's on Forest Drive in North Las Vegas as well.
Nice. And did you have a favorite class?
Well, it was all one class, and
Okay.
there were the different subjects.
Topics.
Yeah, taught each day, but everything.
Really?
I can't pick any one thing. There was everything. I was a sponge.
Okay. No, I don't know. I mean, I know in the field of athletics, usually people might be fast or strong. Like, is there something as a gardener you feel is your niche or your strength? What is, is there's a component to gardening that you really feel like you've just mastered, or maybe are the garden whisperer of?
Well, I love edible plants.
Okay.
Like I like, if I'm gonna use energy, the time and the energy, I like to just focus on plants that are edible, and then not have to pay for, watering plants that can't serve
Don't
any.
do anything. Yeah.
I mean, they all serve a purpose. They all provide oxygen. They all
Right.
photosynthesize. So you get the benefit that way.
Got it.
But I like things that you can use for herbs or for food.
No, that sounds great. So as far as Caridad, what has been your role at Caridad as coming into the head gardener? And can you give us a day in the life of maybe what you do on a daily basis?
Well, we check on plants. Like this is Dave here. Check on Dave's plants, and we'll do that today. We check the pH and check the overall health of the plant, and yeah. So
That's great. Well, now that we've said his name, this is Dave. This is one of our remote gardeners. And so, Dave, how long have you been with Caridad?
Over a year.
Over a year. That's great. And then how did you get to Vegas? Are you from Vegas? Or?
No, I'm from Chicago. originally.
Chicago. Okay.
I lived in the Bay Area before here. I moved down here to work at the newspaper. So I worked here for 12 years there.
Nice.
And I was in the Navy originally for 4 years, and got out as soon as I could. And mainly to go to college, and I went and got my degree in journalism.
Oh, that's wonderful. So then this should feel easy for you, right? Is this comfortable
No,
for
because
you?
most plants I'm around, they die usually.
Oh, I was thinking of the
I
journalism
walk
part.
along lawns and everything. I was born with a black thumb, I think, or a plastic thumb, because I'm good with the silk plants and plastic plants. But
Not the real plant.
so I've been the challenge here. I see other people been in less time than me, and they got plants 12 feet tall, and I'm still working on, because I had some vandalism. They dumped it a couple times, but they've stuck with me, and now at least I usually have questions like, how much do I water? Am I watering too much? Am I doing something wrong? Am I not doing something? Because I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
I really don't.
Right.
But I can water things, and I can keep my cat out of that's my main goal, is keep my cat out of my planter here, because she does like playing in there, especially now that I've growing some catnips.
Got it. Yeah. Well, Dave has a cat. You may see her roaming in and out of some of the cameras. Her name is Dustball.
Yeah.
So just so you know, we have a dog over at the other facility, a cat here. So we have some
All right.
some
official.
animals that we're bringing into Caridad to help with some of the mental stability for companionship. So that's something that's big for us, is not necessarily what we put in our body or what we put our hands into, but who's around us as far as social interaction. So Dave, I was a military brat, so to speak. I'm just curious, what did you do in the Navy?
I was in the supply department on an aircraft carrier. I picked out my job I wanted to stay on land, which I don't know why I joined the Navy, but so they put me on an aircraft carrier, and I went overseas a couple times, and so I got to see a big hunk of half the world,
Wow.
mostly Asia. But,
Nice.
That's one good thing about it.
So did you have a favorite spot that you'd like to see again? or-
Thailand was nice.
Thailand.
Hong Kong was nice too.
So what made Thailand stand out for you as far as such a great
just
place?
pineapple. They had the best
Pineapple.
pineapple. And it was just beautiful, and
Yeah.
it wasn't touristy or anything like that, but it was really nice.
Nice. Now, have you been back since
No.
then, or no?
I've barely been back to San Diego. That's where my
Right.
ship was pointed out, but my ship was decommissioned a few years ago.
Okay.
But it was 40 years old when I got on it, so. But other than that, I gave my time, and I mainly joined for the education benefits,
Right.
and that's what I got out of it. Gave them everything I had. It's worked out good. So.
So you said you worked out for a local paper here in
Yeah.
Las Vegas. What did you actually do when you worked for the paper?
Well, I just a little bit of everything. I was a reporter for a few years back at the LA Times for a while. I did an internship there, and I worked for a couple weekly papers as a reporter. And then by the time I got here, I was one of the editors, and I wrote headlines and designed pages and things like that.
Oh, that's great. Well, something new. I've learned something new today. So what we usually do is Heather will come and visit the remote gardeners in wherever they're staying or living and help them with their plants. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at what Dave has in his apartment today. So I think what we're going to be looking at is some mint and some catnip. So we're going to take a look at what they look like in the actual planters that we've been giving to them, and we'll see if you have the black or green thumb that we were looking for, right?
Okay, well, they've only been planted a week, so.
Yeah,
That's good though, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's been, well, no, it's been less than a week since it was last Friday, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're still in transition. So
Yeah.
it could be that they're in shock, but we'll see. Let's take a look.
Okay. Keep this.
All right. So let's take a look.
Okay. You little knucklehead.
That's weird. All right. Oh, yeah.
There's Dust Bowl. Maybe that's your
She
culprit
loves
for
it.
your black thumb, right?
That's true.
All right. So, can Kim come a little bit closer here?
There.
Okay.
Here, Dave, why don't you come in closer so we can get you.
Okay, well,
All right. So, most of it is actually it's actually doing well. We chose mint for this area because this is semi-shaded. Also, Dave likes to water very well every night, and we're gonna scale that back down to about maybe 3 times a week. One thing that you can do is you can stick your finger in here, and if it's moist, then it doesn't need water. If you stick your finger maybe a couple inches down, if it's moist, it doesn't need water. If it's not so moist, then definitely add water.
okay.
And then you can just kind of pinch off the dead stuff with the thumbnail. And this mint, you don't have to throw it away. You can crumble it up and make potpourri out of it or whatever, and just smell it.
okay.
It's nice aromatherapy.
Okay, that sounds good.
Anytime you transplant stuff, it can kind of go through a little bit of a shock at first. And so if you have a little bit of dieback, that's, don't panic. It doesn't mean that you've killed everything. It doesn't mean all is lost. Just keep trying, keep persisting. Here's these. You can actually just kind of crumble it up and smell it. It smells amazing. I wish the camera could smell it, but it didn't. And then your catnip is doing amazingly well. Your kitty Dustball hasn't dug it up yet.
She hasn't gotten to it yet.
She hasn't gotten to it yet, but she sure loves this. She loves rolling around in here, doesn't she?
Yeah. Well, she doesn't get the chance to do it that often, so.
And you can test your moisture with this, and you can see also that it's pretty moist. It's
Okay.
definitely, you just want it, it's actually more towards,
Over half?
yeah, so on this spectrum it has dry,
Yeah.
and then the center is moist, and then the other part of it is wet.
You
So
want moist or?
you just want it to be moist.
Okay.
Yeah, you want to just keep it moist because that allows it to soak up the nutrients. But if it's soggy, then it will start to develop. It'll start to develop molds, and it'll start to develop anaerobic bacteria if it's soggy. And have you ever smelled it where it gets really stinky smelling?
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, so that's when you know that you've got the anaerobic bacteria where it's taking over. You have all sorts of different kinds of bacteria in here. Some of it is aerobic bacteria, and some of it is anaerobic bacteria. Aerobic uses oxygen, anaerobic grows without oxygen, and it kind of has that sewery smell. So that's when you know you've way watered too much, and that's when you want to definitely. I mean, you want to scale back, definitely. And you can test different areas just to make sure
Yeah.
that it's evenly watered. And mint is one that it will spread. It'll
Okay.
it'll take over. It'll spread, and you'll have this wonderful aroma of mint in
That's
your
gonna be
apartment.
good, yeah.
Yeah, and the catnip, of course. You've got your kitty will love.
Yeah, I'll put that in her box over there.
And then also one thing that you can do is if you have food scraps,
Yeah.
to keep the microbial life growing, and also if you have to keep the microbial life, but also if you have worms, if you bury food scraps, and I mean just vegetarian food scraps. So if you bury, like, say, cucumber peelings or carrot
Yeah, don't
peelings,
throw
or
any meat in there, yeah.
yeah, no meat, no grease, but you can take your food scraps and you can just kind of bury them in places, and over time, with the bacteria
Yeah.
that's in there, it will start to decompose it, and it feeds the bacteria, and that's what you want. You want good microbial life growing in here, because the good microbial life, it helps to break down the nutrients that are in the peelings, the vegetable scraps.
Yeah.
It breaks that down, and then that makes it more available for the plants to take up. The worms do the same thing.
Oh, okay.
They break down the plant matter, and then they make the nutrients available for the plants to take up, so it helps to feed it without having to use fertilizers. You can use fertilizers too, but this is one cheap, easy way that you can do that as
Yeah.
well.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
You just want to come have a seat and we'll chit chat about what we're growing.
I'm gonna cover this so that the kitty doesn't get in.
Oh, yeah.
Now, mint is a mood elevator. It's great, and it also, I've heard many people say that it helps with tummy issues.
Yes.
And I've also heard, because of the menthol in it, that it also helps with sinuses. And I've seen it in some products like Poneris, the nasal drops. So that helps to open up the airways, from what I understand.
Right.
So, another cool thing about the plants that we grow, a lot of times when they get just ever so slightly stressed by, sometimes it could be a bug attacking it or something, it starts to produce more of the compounds that we use it for. But I need to do a little more research on that to know exactly all of those details. But it's pretty cool, all the things that plants provide for us.
Right, absolutely. So my background with nutrition and aromatherapy, and also for having 4 kids, what I've always used was peppermint or spearmint oils, which you can use from, basically you're taking the leaf and pulling the oil out of the leaf. But what I always tried to tell people was that it was a cooling agent as well. So you can add it to water during the summer to help cool you. So if you feel like you're overheating, that's always a good thing to do. When the children were younger, I used to actually use peppermint on their feet because we're a very natural family. We had all of our children in our own home, and so we tried to use as natural products as we could. So whenever they had a fever, we always try to put peppermint or spearmint on their feet, because your feet actually have the largest pores in your body. It goes directly into your bloodstream, so that actually helps to acclimate the temperature in the body. So sometimes we would add bath salts and peppermint or spearmint into a bath to cool them down, because it does it in a natural way without bothering their stomach with some of the pharmaceutical drugs that you can take, which was interesting, which I kind of heard how you were talking about these natural substances as far as these peels of real food going into the soil, and then you don't have to use fertilizer, which I feel like the human body is kind of like that too. When we have those whole foods and we ingest those things or put those on our feet, it actually helps with taking less of those pharmaceutical drugs. It doesn't mean that we don't need them, but it kind of has that same effect. So it's really interesting how when I'm hearing and learning about gardening, it really does relate to the human body. So I start to see the similarities between the two. So that's really interesting. On a personal note, my dad grew up really poor on a farm in Texas, right at the border of Mexico and Hidalgo, and I always remembered we had mint right by our door. It smelled so good, and I'm sure, Dave, that you can relate with the
Oh,
smell
yeah.
of the mint. Everybody, when you smell that mint, it gives you that sense of euphoria as far as just, it's
Makes
a
me
good
think of chewing
smelling.
gum.
Yeah, it's a
That's what
good
it makes.
smelling. It brings us good
It's
feelings.
a mood elevator,
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. But my dad also told me it wasn't just to smell good as far as going in the home and having that sense of uplifting energy, that they actually used to plant it by the doors because it repels ants.
Oh.
So that was a
Okay.
really interesting thing that I felt like I had in my home, because we had a lot of citrus, pomegranate, peach, lemon, orange, tangerine, and then we always had mint by our door. So like I said, I always remember it as something that coming in and coming out of my home, which always was a great memory, which kind of goes into my aromatherapy, that when we smell something, it actually triggers the olfactory system in the brain, which actually goes into our emotional or trauma centers. And so what you'll start seeing in future wellness episodes is us integrating some of that scent, because a lot of what we're dealing with our vets and the homeless population is a lot of PTSD and mental health issues. So these are other ways besides breathing, meditation, movement, gardening, that we can actually integrate with their day-to-day habits, so that can help with them taking less pharmaceutical drugs. Some people actually have to stay kind of modified on them, but you can wean them down into lower doses, which is a helpful tool, because a lot of that can wreak havoc on the digestive tract. A lot of people will feel lethargic and gain weight because what it does to the liver. So these are great opportunities for people to learn that it's not just putting your hands in the soil, right? Not just ingesting them by the mouth, but actually finding oils, putting them in your baths with bath salts. We're getting ready to hit some higher temperatures, so peppermint and mint would be a great thing to add to your water, right?
Oh,
Just to put
yeah.
a leaf in your water, add that cooling smell, cooling taste. The catnip, which I thought was interesting, is a popular stress reliever and is recommended for constipation, bloating, and excess flatulence. So interesting
That's
little bit of information. I know the catnip also helps with menstrual cramps. Something that I was going to recommend too is that I do for injury, as far as working with my athletes, is using some of the peppermint spearmint for muscle relaxation too. So if you're using that as an oil or a salve, you'll notice that helps with kind of that cooling agent to something that's inflamed or red or hot, that it actually will create cooling action into those muscles. So
It's also great for, I use it for headaches.
yes,
When I get
right.
headaches, I'll put it up here.
Back of the
and-
head, on the temples.
Yep.
That's perfect. Yep. And you'll see a lot of the sports massage oils or lotions that will always add the peppermint or spearmint to that. So that's a really interesting component to what it does for our bodies. So I just want to thank Dave for letting us come into your home and meeting your beautiful, I don't know why I want to call it catnip now that we've been talking about catnip, but it's dust ball. I want to thank Heather and welcome Heather to the team. It's been such a great pleasure welcoming you into our organization and seeing all the great benefits that we have from having a lead gardener. So I just want to thank you for joining us on a Wellness Wednesday. I want to say happy St. Patrick's Day. I'm wearing my green, as you can see. I actually have a lot of Irish in me, but you would never know it. So be safe this holiday. We want to thank you and say happy Wellness Wednesday.
Thank you. Yay!
Yay, good job, you guys. That was really interesting.